Are you drowning in money questions but too embarrassed to ask? Tired of scrolling endlessly through conflicting financial advice that leaves you more confused than when you started? Welcome to the Finance Girlies podcast, your cozy corner for all things finance. I'm your host, Emily.
And I'm your host, Cassidy. We're both finance writers for brands like Forbes Advisor, USA Today Blueprint, and Yahoo Finance. Throughout our careers and personal lives, we have come to one realization. When we keep our money worries to ourselves, we end up feeling alone. That's why each episode we tackle those burning questions you've been afraid to ask with no judgment, no jargon, just real talk about real money. Ready to finally get answers? Let's dive in.
Hey girlies, we just got back from FinCon, which, if you don't know, is the biggest personal finance conference in the country. And today we're giving you a peek into our favorite sessions, our fangirl moments, and the ideas we're bringing back to the Finance Girlies community.
So we pretty much came up with a list of questions we want to ask each other and discuss. So you're going to kind of get to bear witness to Emily and I talking through some of our favorite FinCon moments and all of that stuff. But I wanted to start just by explaining why we went to FinCon in the first place and what we were hoping to get out of it before we went. So I had been to FinCon before. FinCon has been going on for 15 years. I went to the one in Austin in 2021. And at the time, because Emily and I both are freelance writers for finance companies, that was the sole focus when I went in 2021. Like, I only wanted to grow my freelance business. I was looking for more writing clients. That was the name of the game. But of course, Emily and I have this darling podcast, and just want to thank you personally for being here if you're listening to this right now. And so for FinCon this year, our main goal was to go on behalf of the Finance Girlies and figure out ways to build a stronger community and relationship with you all, to find some good guests for the podcast, some people who can bring on some wisdom that we can all learn from together. And then also we wanted to, just connect with other people where maybe we could be on their podcast one day and talk about similar things that we talk about with you all here. And so those were kind of our three goals heading into FinCon. So Emily, I want to start by asking you, expectations versus reality. How did you, as someone who had never attended FinCon before, what did you think?
I don't know if I had clear expectations going in, but I will say I was surprised by just the sheer amount of people that were there and the sheer amount of people who do similar work to what we do. Like, there are a lot of finance nerds out there. I was also surprised by the diversity of people who were there in terms of their business models and what they do. Like, there were so many people there who are I guess what I'd call TikTok influencers or Instagram or YouTube personalities, things that don't even cross my mind because, I don't know, as a millennial, maybe I'm less in that world as some of those younger creators, but all of that really surprised me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to guess there were at least 1,000 people there. Maybe, I think I heard the number 2,000 quoted somewhere. And I never met two people who did the same thing. It's even if two people have personal finance blogs, it's what they blog about is different, even though it's in the personal finance space. And so I really liked that aspect of it. And yeah, the world of personal finance, whenever you dive into it, is so vast. And there were just so many different types of people there doing all different types of things in personal finance on all different types of platforms. And so the way the conference is set up, we had jam-packed days. Emily and I would head to the convention center, be there at 9 a.m. and a lot of things. I think the earliest night we quit was 5:30. And then another night it was 8 p.m. because we went to that dinner. So these were jam-packed days with very few breaks in the middle. A lot of the sessions, there would be a main stage session once a day where we would all gather in one room and there would be a keynote speaker or maybe an Ask Me Anything, AMA panelist situation about a certain topic. And then the rest of the day, there were all of these breakout sessions. And I think the breakout sessions are where most of the inspiration happened because you could get a little more niche and choose. There were multiple breakout sessions going on at once, so then you could pick some that kind of better fit what the reason why you were there.
Yeah, definitely. There were also, every day there were what they called niche meetups, so you could meet just casually with other people based on a specific topic in personal finance. So like there was one for like retirement, one for debt, and then also kind of based on your platforms. Like we attended one for freelance writing and we went to one for podcasting. And that was just really cool to speak with other people who are doing pretty similar work to what we're doing and hearing their experiences, what they're trying out, what's working for them, and like what is kind of changing about the industry.
Yeah. There were so many little tidbits on the direction of personal finance content, like how people are searching for content, digesting content, what they're looking for. And so that angle was interesting to hear about as well. So.
Yeah. So let's maybe share our favorite sessions or learning moments.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to look at my notebook for this because I don't want to mess up anything that she says, but my absolute favorite session from the entire conference was one of the main stage keynote speakers on the second day, I believe she spoke. Her name is Angie Matthews, and her platform is called Happy Investor Method. And she talked about how we all have these emerging identities inside of us. And then she proceeded to talk about ways in which we can allow those identities to show up more in the work that we do, whether, it's online, in our personal lives, whatever. And so I just want to read off a few quotes. So she started by posing the question, who do you think you are? And she talked about how a lot of people think this is condescending, who do you think you are? But she was like, no, truly, who do you think you are? Because many of us are not committed to our own evolution and we exit the stage a little too prematurely. And how it would be really nice if a box showed up on our door and it was like, your mission in life is to XYZ. And we knew it and we were like, this is our mission. Should we choose to accept it? But, she talked about how life doesn't work this way and how many of us have these emerging identities inside of us, almost like a caterpillar that's getting ready to turn into a butterfly. And we know that these identities are emerging when the box of opportunities that we're given in life kind of start to feel like this gel, and how essentially we don't need to push away the things that make us who we are, but we need to find ways to integrate those more into our life. So, she gave the example of if you are someone who identifies as a daughter, which, hello, I do. Emily does. And you have aging parents, right? And you're a financial planner. Maybe you're going to talk about what it's like planning to care for aging parents financially. What systems do they have in place to take care of themselves, right? You can speak about that from the lens of a child, watching this happen to your parents. And that was a really direct example. But also, if you're someone who identifies as, I don't know, someone who thrifts, I love a good thrift store. It's how can I weave that thing that I love to do in my free time into the way I show up in my work,
Yeah. Something she said was don't push away who you are or what makes you you, which I really like, especially in the context of business or creating a community. We've both seen, and we hope for the Finance Girlies, that what you put out there is kind of what you attract. And so, sharing these parts of yourself, I think, can help you attract the people and opportunities and experiences that are just right for you.
Yeah, I also remember FinCon 2021, one nugget that I took away from that, and I don't know who I heard it from, is just that a lot of personal finance information is the same, right? How to pay off debt, how to do whatever else. You can easily find this information online, but the thing that makes you stand out and the thing that attracts people to you is you. You are the secret ingredient that separates how you talk about personal finance information from someone else. So finding ways to weave more of yourself or your experiences or your stories into what you say is how you find your people.
Right. So if you like crafting and
corgis,
I don't know, corgis, you are in the right place.
You see an identity that someone else has and you're like, I want that for myself, that seems like a cool identity to have. So one thing, and I think Ange mentioned this in her presentation, is that she has identified as a hard worker most of her life because she saw her dad specifically working so hard. And that is something that I've always identified with because I've also seen my family like hustle to make ends meet. But one quality that you have, Emily, and I think one of your identities is that you're someone who like intentionally chooses to slow down and savor life and make sure that you are living life to its fullest and not making work your number one priority always. And so like that's an identity that I want for myself and I'm working to build as an example. But
I call that identity lazy, intentionally lazy.
Intentional laziness. Or someone who this is how I'm branding myself. I'm someone who is like choosing to find the whimsy in life. Like I want to be more whimsical and find the joy in the teeniest, tiniest things.
Yeah. I loved this presentation because I think there were, maybe this is common in the finance space, I think there were certain topics or presentations or brands that kind of came off as like optimization, like how can you, optimize your wealth, optimize your business, all of these things. And the talks and the people and the sessions that I think drew us in were the ones that were like, how can you have more fun? How can you make your business more fun? How can you make your life more fun?
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So my favorite session, it's hard to pick one, but I think the one that stands out is a session with Kelsa Dickey, who is a financial coach, and she also has this community called the Financial Coach Academy, where she trains other financial coaches. And she's someone I've followed for years because I love her philosophy and her talk. Really, it was like that thing where like you admire someone from afar, and then when you meet them in person, it's like, will they live up to the expectations? And she like surpassed the expectations. So her session was about how current financial content, which is like what we are creating, isn't changing behavior. And I think she said in July of this year, it was like the lowest ever savings rate in the history of however long they've been tracking that in the US. And like things just keep getting worse even as there is more and more financial content available. So her session was like why this is. And it really got into the disconnect between financial educators and the people consuming their content. And it was really eye-opening. She shared how the people we want to reach probably don't need step-by-step instructions going into all the little details. They want the big picture and they want, give me 2 or 3 steps that I can take. They don't want to track every penny, and they don't want too much structure, which is, kind of different from the way, like, Cassidy, you and I do things. They see, like, a to-do list as a checklist of ways they're going to fail, which is fascinating. So anyway, she kind of left us with this mantra of less, simpler, sooner, as a way to kind of, it's like a framework for financial education. Like, how can you give them less information, make it simpler, and get people to take action sooner? So all about behavior change. It was really fascinating. And she just clearly cares so much about improving her clients' financial lives that I found it really inspiring.
Yeah, those are 3 really great things to practice doing. I know for myself, this has always been true. I'm like, I've got to get the most information possible. The people need the information. But just to be like, no, sometimes you just need like 1 or 2 simple things to do and focus on that first so you are taking action, because we can sit in the pool of collecting information forever. This reminds me of the book that you and I read, what's the book on perfectionism?
Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control.
Yeah. I am a procrastinating perfectionist because I just want to gather all of the information before I take action. But at the end of the day, you're still not taking action,
Right.
So those are all really good reminders.
Yeah. Another thing Kelsa said was, you just need enough to start, or you just need to give enough for somebody to get started. That's all. Which, is hard when you have all the information, you want to share all the information, but that's not what connects with most people. So that was a great session.
I love that. Okay, next question. Can you think of any tips or ideas off the top of your head that you are immediately excited to implement for the podcast?
One thing we heard over and over again throughout the week was the importance or the growth of video content. And I think this is something that we both, well, maybe not you, I'll speak for myself. This is something I didn't want to hear, to be honest. Number one, I don't consume a lot of video content. And two, I don't have a video presence, I'll say. Don't know how else to say that. I recognize its popularity, its growing popularity, and would be curious to see if that's something that resonates with more people. So that may be something we explore in the future.
Yeah, video version of the podcast might be coming.
Yeah, what about a tip or idea that you took away?
There were a lot of little things, probably for the podcast logistics, that I'm excited to implement, like we're going to change up the intro and make it shorter. We're going to have more structure around how we start each episode and how we end each episode. And we gathered some tips on like how to keep all of our podcast stuff just more organized behind the scenes, like in Google Drive. And all of those are very quick things. And some of them we've already began to implement. And so I'm excited just to see how all of those like back end things are going to help us in the long run.
Me too. Were there any people you were excited to meet before going? Like meeting them in real life?
Okay, so I think you and I are going to say the same people for this, but we have had several guests on the podcast up until this point, and two of them that we know of were at FinCon, so we got to meet them IRL. The first one was Jessica Norwood from the Sugar Daddy podcast, and she is just as lovely in person as she is online. During our interview, she and her husband just have these like really vivid, bright personalities, and they're like really good voices in the personal finance space. And so I loved getting to meet them in real life.
Yeah, and we just like got lucky running into them, I feel like, everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Which was fun.
Yeah. And then the other person that we got to
meet. The other guest who was at FinCon and who was a main stage speaker, which was a big deal, was Jillian Johnsrud. And hearing her talk, it was like the final session of FinCon. And it was like such I feel like a high note to end on, because her message, if you missed that episode that she did with us, it's all about how to take several career breaks throughout your life so you can make more money, enjoy your life more, get to do big bucket list items that can't wait until retirement. I just love her message in general, and hearing her speak on the topic was really fun. And we also got to meet with some members of her. Were they team members,
I think
or
they're
were they
just friends?
Okay,
just friends.
And we also got to meet with some of Jillian's friends. We just happened to run into them and kind of made the connection, and had a lot of fun chatting with them and kind of fangirling with them a little bit.
There were two people that we met unexpectedly on our last day there that I absolutely loved. They have both been blogging since 2008. They are like real OG personal finance bloggers. And we met them at a Women in Money breakout session, which was also a really good, like, secondary shout out to the Women in Money sessions. They were very good as well. But we loved these two ladies so much. We met them during the session, talked to them for probably an hour after the session, ended up grabbing lunch with them, talked to them some more, sat in the final session with them. And just as a little preview, one of them will be a podcast guest in next month's paid episode. So that was like very unexpected, and they were both just really great. And we had a lot in common. So that was good.
That was fun. Okay, let's talk about what's next. What is one or two things you're excited to try that you heard about or learned from FinCon?
Yeah, I think similar to you, I am really excited to play around with video content. I should say nervously excited to play around with video content. We know that it's something we should be doing, and we always do record the video along with these podcast episodes. Right now I can see mine and Emily's face on the screen being recorded, but we never use the video portion of it. We usually just keep the audio. It will be fun / a little nerve-wracking to play around with that, I think.
Something I'm excited about that I heard from Chloe Daniels' presentation, she is the woman behind Chloe Bear Money Coach, was just kind of the importance of testing, changing, and adapting when it comes to financial education. So this podcast is still, not even quite a year old, and we're very much in like the experimental phase. But she just kind of emphasized, I guess, the importance of testing and changing and adapting. And I think I can speak for both of us in saying we're really excited to keep seeing like what topics resonate with our audience and what people want to hear, what people want to learn about, what questions you all have, things like that.
I was inspired by several people at FinCon just with the strength of the communities that they've built. Like, it seems like these really inclusive, safe spaces for people to come and talk about money or learn how to do something, like whether it be investing with Clover Money Coach or something else. And I was just really inspired by those communities, and it got me excited to continue like building out our community in hopes of it becoming something like that one day as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, in terms of how we're thinking about business more broadly moving forward. There was a lot of talk about like the importance of human connection and of, the age of AI and things like that, and how community is something we're craving. So yeah, I kind of walked away wondering like, how can we create more of a community with the Finance Girlies?
I agree. I'm also excited about those things. So in closing, let's talk about if we think we would go to FinCon again.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit. I can see us going again, for sure. I think maybe the next few months will maybe give us more of an idea of whether we want to do that or not. Yeah, all of the sessions that were for podcasters or podcast editors, I thought were super interesting and fun. And so I could see us wanting to go to like a podcasting conference or, something a little more specific to like different pieces of our business in the future. I will say the opportunity to meet so many different people was really fun, and I can see us wanting to do that again.
Yeah, you brought up while we were still at FinCon, like, should we look for a podcast-specific conference to go to? And I was like, I did not even consider that, but that might be where we need to go next. Yeah, I also think just the people that we met and some of the connections that we made, like, we'll see those play out in bigger ways over the course of the next year. And I think that will influence our decision, like whether we go or stay.
I definitely think the people we met were the best part of the whole conference. So here's a little thank you or shout out to anyone listening who we met. It was wonderful to meet you.
Truly was. And if you loved this episode, come hang out with us on Substack. Just go to thefinancegirlies.com and tap the big gold banner at the top.
See you next week. That's a wrap on another episode of the Finance Girlies podcast. Nothing in this episode is meant to be taken as financial advice.
Please do your own research and talk to a professional if you need advice. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Love you. Bye.